Have you ever found yourself in a moment that felt so wrong, yet so impossible to ignore? What would you do if someone you trusted suddenly crossed a line you never expected? Hello everyone, I'm Tina. And before I dive into my story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your country or city in the comments below. It always amazes me how stories like this connect us from all around the world. This happened just about 2 months ago. At that time, I was living in a house that no longer felt like home. My husband Max was a successful businessman, always consumed by his career. On paper, I had everything a woman could ask for: stability, comfort, a provider. But inside, I was empty, invisible. There were no more warm glances, no more late-night conversations, no soft touches that reminded me I was loved. We lived under the same roof, but our hearts were miles apart. And then Blake, my stepson, moved back home after college. His presence brought light back into the house. He was polite, attentive, and had an energy that filled the silence Max had left behind. Sometimes I would catch his gaze lingering on me a second too long. Sometimes his touch, even if accidental, felt more deliberate than it should have been. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. But deep inside, I couldn't deny the magnetism that pulled at me. Then one evening, everything changed. The sun was setting, painting my bedroom in a warm glow. I had just slipped out of my blouse when I heard the door creak. My heart nearly stopped. Standing there was Blake, frozen in shock, his eyes wide and silence hanging heavy between us. And that's when everything I thought I understood about myself, about him, and about the boundaries of family began to blur. If it were you in that moment, what would you do? Pretend like nothing happened, or stop to ask why fate arranged the situation like that? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Have you ever had a moment where you knew you were standing at the edge of something dangerous, yet your heart refused to turn away? If it were you, would you step back or let yourself fall? My name is Tina, and what I'm about to share isn't easy. Even now, I ask myself if I should be telling you this. But sometimes, the things that weigh heaviest on our hearts are the very stories we need to let out. That night, after Blake accidentally walked in on me, the air between us changed forever. I tried to convince myself it was just an awkward accident, but the way he looked at me, I couldn't erase it from my mind. The loneliness I had carried for years, the silence of my marriage, suddenly clashed with the warmth in his eyes. Dinner was quiet. We talked, but underneath the words, there was something unspoken. And when he said softly, "You don't have to deal with this all alone. I'm here if you need me," my heart nearly broke. I had waited years for someone to say those words. That night I couldn't sleep. I told myself it was only because I was lonely that anyone in my situation would feel the same. But deep down, I knew it was more. Much more. The next morning, it happened again. The door creaked, my pulse raced, and there he was, Blake, standing in the doorway. He looked guilty, ready to turn away. But this time, I didn't let him. "It's okay. You don't have to go," I said. He stepped closer and his words pierced straight through me. "Because I care about you. You're always doing things for everyone else. But no one ever stops to ask how you're really doing. And that was the moment all I felt a single tear escape. A tear I had been holding back for years. That moment, it changed everything. Before I could even wipe my tear away, Blake reached out and gently brushed it from my cheek. His touch was so tender that I froze. I hadn't been touched like that in years, gently like I mattered. My breath caught, my heart raced. And before I even realized it, we were leaning closer. His lips brushed against mine. It was soft, hesitant, like he was asking a question neither of us dared to voice. And then it deepened. Every wall I had built around my heart started to crumble. I knew the boundaries, I knew the risks. But in that moment, none of it mattered. But just as quickly as it happened, reality came crashing back. A knock at the door. Tina. It was Max. My blood ran cold. Blake's body tensed beside me. My husband back from his trip earlier than expected. The timing couldn't have been worse. I scrambled my mind, racing, my pulse pounding in my ears. Blake moved fast, whispering, "Stay calm." He slipped toward the window, disappearing into the night, just as Max rattled the doorknob again. When I finally opened the door, Max's eyes were filled with suspicion. "You were in there for a long time. What's going on?" I lied. I told him I wasn't feeling well, that I just needed to rest. He softened, kissed my forehead, and walked away. But inside, I was breaking. From that night on, Blake and I avoided being alone together. But the weight of what had happened pressed down on me like a storm I couldn't escape. Every glance we stole across the dinner table, every silence between us, carried the memory of that kiss. One night, I found myself standing outside Blake's room, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Before I could decide, he opened it. Our eyes met. "We need to talk," I whispered. Inside, I told him the truth. I can't stop thinking about what happened. But it can't happen again. He looked at me, his voice low, filled with pain, I know. "But that doesn't change how I feel about you." The silence between us was unbearable. My heart ached with longing and guilt all at once. I left his room that night, but I knew the story wasn't over. "Tell me, my friends, what would you do if you were in Tina's place? Confess everything to Max, bury the secret forever? Or follow the pull of forbidden love?" Let me know in the comments below. The days that followed were unbearable. Every time I crossed paths with Blake, the air between us grew heavier. We both tried to act normal, but deep down we knew. We had crossed a line that could never be erased. One evening, Max returned home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard voices upstairs, Max and Blake. Something in their tone made my stomach twist. I wiped my hands on a towel and rushed toward the staircase, only to freeze halfway. Max's voice thundered from Blake's room. "Tell me the truth, Blake. What's going on between you and Tina?" My heart dropped. My knees nearly gave out beneath me. Blake's silence spoke louder than words. And then Max's footsteps stormed down the stairs. His face was pale with rage, his eyes burning with betrayal. All this time, under my own roof, he hissed. I tried to explain, to beg him to let me speak, but my words tangled in my throat. Tears streamed down my face as I reached for him, but he pulled away, as if my touch burned him. That night, the house that once felt empty became something worse, a battlefield of broken trust. Max packed a bag without another word, his silence sharper than any scream. Blake stood in the doorway of his room, his face twisted in anguish, but he said nothing either. When the front door slammed shut, I sank to the floor sobbing. The life I once knew, the stability, the family, the safety was gone in an instant. All that remained was silence. The same silence that had haunted me for years, but now it was poisoned with guilt and shame. And Blake, he left the next morning. No goodbye. Just the sound of his footsteps fading down the hallway, leaving me behind with nothing but memories I could never confess out loud. And that, my friends, was the price of one forbidden moment. Tell me, if you were Max, would you ever forgive? If you were Blake, would you have walked away? Or if you were me, would you have chosen differently from the start? Share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that could so easily have been ours.